Looking for magic cards? At flipsidegaming.com you can now use the promo code LVD to get a 10% discount on orders over $10 while supporting the channel at the same time. Hello and welcome to another modern gameplay video. Today we're taking a look at a deck called the Gruul Glass. It's a multicolor aggro deck centered around a Glass of the Guild Pact, a 2-mana artifact that says multicolored creatures you control get +1/+1, which is a pretty nice payoff card for playing a bunch of multicolor creatures. So looking at our 1-drops, we've got the full 4 copies of Tattermunge Maniac, 1 mana for a 2/1 that has the drawback of having to attack each combat if able. We've also got 4 copies of Giant Militant, which is a 1 mana 2/1 that says if an instant or sorcery card would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. And then we also have our 4 copies of Lightning Bolt as a nice cheap removal spell that can always go to the face if we're trying to close out the game. Then at 2 mana, of course, we've got our 4 copies of Glass of the Guild Pact, which pumps up all the creatures in our deck. We've got 4 copies of Jund Hackblade, which we can cast just using green and red mana as a 2/1 that gets +1/+1 and haste as long as we control another multicolored permanent. So if we curve one of our 1-drops into Jund Hackblade, it will come out as a 3/2 with haste on turn 2, which is not bad. And then we also have the full 4 copies of Burning Tree Emissary to kind of speed up the deck. 2 mana for a 2/2, and when the Burning Tree enters the battlefield, we get to add a red and green to our mana pool. So we can use that 2 mana to, for example, cast another Burning Tree Emissary, a Jund Hackblade, a Glass of the Guild Pact, or if we're holding a bunch of 1-drops, we can unload those as well. The Burning Tree just helps us get on the board quickly, which is something we definitely need as an aggro deck in Modern. And finally, we have 2 copies of Psychotic Fury, giving target multicolored creature double strike until end of turn, and also drawing us a card, so pretty good card in our deck. And then at 3 mana, we've got the full 4 copies of Boggart Ramgang, 3 mana for a 3/3 with haste and wither, so this creature deals combat damage to opposing creatures in the form of -1/-1 counters, so will be very difficult for the opponent to block, especially once it gets bumped by Glass of the Guild Pact, or one of our next cards, which is Bortusk Liege, 4 mana for a 3/4 with trample, giving other red creatures we control +1/+1, and other green creatures we control +1/+1 as well. So any red-green multicolor creature, like our Maniac, or Burning Tree Emissary, Hackblade, or Boggart Ramgang, will get +2/+2 from the Bortusk Liege, which is quite a bonus. Then we also have 2 copies of Gorkline Rampager, which we're mostly using as a pump spell in this deck, since for a red and a green we can discard Gorkline Rampager and target attacking creature we control gets +4/+4 and trample until end of turn. And of course, if we're just top decking and we just need to cast an extra creature, we can always cast a Rampager for 4 mana as a 4/4 trampler, which isn't bad. And then, last but not least, 4 copies of Bloodbraid Elf, 4 mana for a 3/2 haste with Cascade, so we often end up cascading into additional creatures to add to the board, and of course a great tool against any control deck that relies on counterspells, since we'll still get the effect from Cascade even if they counter the Bloodbraid Elf. And of course the dream is to cascade into a Boggart Ramgang and be attacking with a ton of hasty damage. And then our mana base is pretty straightforward. We've got the full 4 copies of Copperline Gorge, which enters the battlefield untapped if it's one of our first 3 lands. 4 Wooded Foothills as one of our fetch lands, which can fetch up our 2 copies of Stomping Ground, or one of our basic lands. We've got 5 basic forests and 5 basic mountains, as well as 2 copies of Raging Ravine. For the late game, we can turn it into a 3/3 creature that's both red and green, so gets the bonus from Glass of the Guild Pact, as well as Bortusk Liege, and then also gets a +1/+1 counter when it attacks, so very powerful creature land. And then taking a look at our sideboard, we've got a whole bunch of 1-offs. We've got a Grafdigger's Cage and Relic of Progenitus against graveyard decks, Alpine Moon against lands-based decks. We've got an Abrade as creature removal that can also hit artifacts. Revelry can hit artifacts and enchantments. Ancient Grudge can hit multiple artifacts. We've got Lava Coil as removal that exiles and takes care of 4 toughness creatures. We've got the Vithian Renegades as more artifact removal. Choke to get rid of islands. Blood Moon as another way to hate on non-basic lands. And we've got plenty of basic forests to get, so we can still cast our green spells, but even with only red mana we can cast most of our deck. And then we've got a Burning Tree Shaman to punish activated abilities against certain artifact-based combo decks. We've got Kitchen Finks to gain us a bit of life against the aggro and burn decks. We've got Domri against the more controlling and mid-range decks. We've got Huntmaster as another great tool in the burn matchup, as well as just a nice threat in the more mid-rangey matchups. And then a Xenagos as another curve topper. That's also excellent as it makes 2/2 tokens with haste that are both red and green, so they synergize very nicely in our deck, and also another great tool against the more controlling decks. So yeah, that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, we're on the draw with a very good looking hand. So we've got a turn 1 Maniac into turn 2 double Burning Tree and Hackblade. So a very explosive start. Let's see what we're up against. Turn 1 Temple of Malice, so maybe a Griselbrand Reanimator type deck. We're just gonna run out to Maniac here. Of course, a drawback of Maniac is against creature decks. If they have a big blocker out, you're still forced to attack with it. But against creature-less combo decks, it's just a 2-powered 1-drop, which is all we need. And has all the upside of getting pumped by Glass and the Liege. Opponent with another Temple of Malice. Alright, time to run out some Burning Trees. Alright, attack for 5. And next turn we get to Ram Gang. So how much damage are we attacking for? Next turn 12, so we're not quite presenting lethal, but pretty close. So if our opponent shocks here, they would be dead, but they get a basic swamp. And Faithless Looting. Do we see a Griselbrand go to the graveyard? We do. Alright, we could be in trouble if they have Goryo's Vengeance here. And there it is. Alright, that's too bad. We might be dead now. Opponent just hits us for 7. Draw 7. Don't know if this version can kill us on the spot, or if they're just gonna set up for next turn. Let's see if they have a Nourishing Shoal here. Yep, there it is. Although they only cast a Nourishing Shoal for 2. Exiling another Nourishing Shoal. So they didn't quite find a Worldspine Worm to exile. Maybe our opponent fizzled and they can't actually kill us here, and we get to kill them next turn. That would be pretty funny. And yeah, our opponent just concedes, so they didn't find enough ways to gain life here, and after drawing a ton of cards with Griselbrand, our opponent just has to scoop it up. Well, that's the risk of playing a combo deck with a small fail case. So this is a matchup where we want our Graveyard Hate, Gravedigger's Cage, Relic is definitely coming in. Anything else that stands out? Don't think we need Blood Moon. Our opponent sometimes plays Blood Moon themselves, so they'll have plenty of protection against it. So I don't see anything else besides these 2 Graveyard Hate cards to bring in. And what do we take out? Could see cutting the Gorklan Rampager, since we don't really need combat tricks in this matchup. Yeah, that's probably fine. I don't really see anything else that we really want to take out. I guess Lightning Bolt might be worse than Rampager, but 1 mana for 3 damage as opposed to 2 mana for 4 damage is slightly more efficient, although Rampager combos with Psychotic Fury for the Wombo combo. So I think we'll just go with this for now. Alright, hand looks okay, nothing fancy, but turn 1 Dried Militant, turn 2 Hackblade, go from there. Can get behind it. No Graveyard Hate, but with only 2 Graveyard Hate cards, it's not like we can mulligan too aggressively. And Dried Militant still has relevant text against the Griselbrand deck, getting rid of any instants and sorceries, so they can't flashback their Faithless Looting, for example. Let's just play a Stomping Ground here, I think. We do want to stay above 15 lives, so Worldspine Worm doesn't kill us on the spot if they Through the Breach it. Since that's the other way our opponent can kill us, is with Through the Breach. They don't necessarily have to use a graveyard. Opponent does have Looting, gets rid of Worm, Looting gets exiled, and our opponent also discarded Discovery Dispersal, which got exiled by the Dried Militant. Alright, there's Lightning Bolt, so we'll just play Hackblade here. And hope they don't have a Fatal Push for the Militant. Alright, get in for 5, so not a bad start. Next turn we can add a Militant, as well as maybe bolt our opponent, play Ravine, and then Liege as kind of the finishing blow. So while our deck is definitely fair in comparison to the opponent's deck, at least we're pretty consistent. So we'll play the Militant before attacking here, just in case our opponent kills the Militant, so the Hackblade doesn't lose the +1/+1 bonus. Attack for 5. And we could keep the Maniac in hand to play around like an Anger of the Gods type effect. Since, let's see, how much damage do we have next turn if we play the Liege? We would have 6 plus 4 is 10. So yeah, I don't think we need to overextend with the Maniac. I'll just play Ravine. Plus we have a Bolt that we can fire off end of turn. And if our opponent doesn't interact with our board, the Liege kills them. So might as well play around Anger of the Gods. Opponent with Simian Spirit Guide, and there we go, Anger of the Gods. So happy we didn't commit a Maniac at least. We'll bolt our opponents. And run out the Liege, which at least survives 3 damage effects. And then we're kind of hoping for an untapped land so we can fire up the Raging Ravine, since the Copper Line will enter the battlefield tapped. There's a Looting, gets rid of Gristlebrand and a Semi-Spirit Guide. Doesn't appear like they have Glorious Vengeance. And Bloodbraid was a good top deck. What do we cascade into? Burning Tree Emissary. Works for me. And with the 2 mana we can still play the Maniac here. And attack for 8, and that's gonna do it. Sweet, so managed to beat Gristlebrand. Got pretty lucky in the first game that our opponent kind of fizzled out after reanimating Gristlebrand. But yeah, our nice little aggro deck got the job done. On to the next one. Alright, we're on the draw. Our hand's not amazing, we're lacking a 1-drop, so it's definitely on the weaker side, but it might still be keepable. We've got double Psychotic Fury that we can cycle and deal extra damage with. And the Hackblade still power up each other. So the second Hackblade will have haste, and then it powers up the first one. Turn 1 Celestial Colonnade, so up against a controlling deck. Alright, mount and go. And turn 2 Search for Ascanta. Let's get this Hackblade in play. So it looks like we're up against blue-white control. Just gonna play another Hackblade and see what they do. Attack for 6. Alright. Opponent does have a response. Gets a tapped Breeding Pool. Alright, so they're not the typical blue-white control deck. Cast Opt. They maybe wanted to do that before we got a chance to attack, because now the Hackblade did get haste, so if they have a Path to Exile that they're digging towards, they could have done that before we got a chance to attack. Play a Raging Ravine, and next turn we can either play Liege, or if we want to play around the sweeper effect, we can just cycle a bunch of Psychotic Furies. Although that's riskier in the face of spot removal. Field of Ruin can blow up our Raging Ravine eventually. And instead it's going to be a Wilderness Reclamation, alright, that explains the green splash. So our opponent still gets access to their counter spells, which probably include Cryptic Command. So I don't want to run the Liege into Cryptic Command here. So I'm just gonna play the land, move to combat, and see what they want to do. Now the question is, do we cycle the Psychotic Fury in the face of potential removal? Opponent didn't have Path to Exile last turn. If we play Psychotic Fury, they could bounce our creature in response, and then we don't get to draw the card. So this is kind of a tough spot. I think I will go for it, since otherwise we're not doing anything. And if they mess with one Psychotic Fury, hopefully the other one gets to stick. Opponent goes with a Field of Ruin on Raging Ravine. We'll float some mana, get a Mountain, and see if we get to resolve the Psychotic Fury here. Looks like they have a negate, that's fine. We'll Psychotic Fury again, leaving up red mana since we have more red 1-drops than green ones, and hit them for 9. So opponent's all the way down to 4. Pass a turn, although we did lose our Raging Ravine, which was a great tool against any sweeper effect. Opponent does flip Ascanta, and with Wilderness Reclamation they get to use it twice a turn. So we do need to close out this game quickly. Opponent uses Ascanta, finds Path to Exile. It's gonna get rid of one of our Hackblades at least. Float some mana, and there's a Path to Exile on one of the Hackblades. Get another Mountain. Plenty of basics in our deck to search up at least. And a Burning Tree Emissary, so I guess we'll lead with Burning Tree. And then we can still play the Liege. And get in for 5. And it's going to be Cryptic Command to tap down the team. Alright, well, everything's on the board. If our opponent finds a sweeper effect here, we're in trouble. Although they don't have double white yet. They'll need to chain a bunch of Cryptic Commands to keep our team tapped down. Azcanta gets activated. We don't have any non-basics, so they can't use Field of Ruin to fix their mana at the moment. Opponent finds an Opt. Azcanta gets activated. Finds Sphinx's Revelation, that's a good one. So they can use that to gain a ton of life and get out of range. Although they'll need a Cryptic Command right now, otherwise they're still taking lethal. Bloodbraid Elf, I guess it's okay to play this. Cascade, find a Lightning Bolt, put him to 1. See if we get a chance to attack here. Opponent casts Opt. They still have triple blue for Cryptic Command, but they don't find it. Awesome. So managed to beat Band Control in game 1. This is a matchup where we want to bring in our Planeswalkers. Domri, Xenagos are definitely coming in. We could also decide to bring in Blood Moon to shut down the Azcanta, but I think Choke is probably enough land hate for now. Revelry can destroy Azcanta, and Reclamation, maybe that's okay. Anything else? Huntmaster's not a bad threat, but we already have plenty of 4-drops that we want to keep in Bloodbraid Elf. So I think we're mainly looking at these 4 cards. And what do we take out? Could see cutting the Lightning Bolts, although 1 mana for 3 damage is still okay. I think I'll just cut the Psychotic Furies and the Rampagers and keep in the Lightning Bolts as kind of safer burn in a way. And I don't think we'll bring in the Blood Moon for now, but we might reconsider. Blood Moon also more effective if we're on the play. Alright, not a great hand, a lot of lands, although we do have double Raging Ravine, but we saw our opponent playing multiple copies of Field of Ruin, so it's not like Raging Ravine is necessarily gonna connect. I think this hand is weak enough that we should mulligan. Alright, this hand's also not great, but I don't think I want to go to 5. And we'll bottom the Ravine. We are only playing 22 lands, so it's not like we're likely to flood out, and we have a decent amount of 4-drops. But any land drawn from here is pretty bad. Alright, a Ram Gang's not bad. Run out the Maniac. And these early 1-drops can definitely do a good job of pressuring the opponent, force them to use those Path to Exiles early. Alright, Hackblade, I guess we'll go for the Hackblade here. Get in for 5, unless they've got a Path. Alright, they do have Path for the Hackblade. We'll get a Forest. They could have decided to Path the Maniac, and then the Hackblade wouldn't have gotten haste. But in the long term, the Hackblade's gonna be the bigger threat. Dawn of Hope, now that's an unexpected one. I guess it plays pretty well with Reclamation. We did bring in our 1 copy of Destructive Revelry, and Xenagos is not a bad one to have here. Otherwise we were just gonna run out the Ram Gang and the Maniac. Make a hasty Satyr and get in for 4. And then hopefully we can draw our Glass of the Guild Pact at some point, since we kind of built the deck around it but haven't drawn it yet. But just goes to show that we can still win games without it, which is a good thing. And when we do draw it, we get a nice little Anthem effect. Alright, opponent just playing tap lands saying go, and there's a Glass, right on time. Let's lead with the Ram Gang. See if this resolves, it does. Play Glass. Resolves, make a hasty Satyr, which is now a 3/3. And get in there, that's 13, so if they don't have anything they're dead, but they do have a Path for the Ram Gang. Get another basic. And get in there for 9. Next turn they might be able to start making tokens with Dawn of Hope, but they're still pretty low here, and they need to find an answer to Xenagos. Alright, let's make another hasty Satyr. Do we play around Cellular Wreckage? I don't think so. Alright, opponent does have Cellular Wreckage. Just get a bunch of basics here. Even if they did have Settle, we weren't going to be in a terrible spot, since we can still reload with Maniacs, and we still have Xenagos producing Satyrs. So even in the worst case scenario, which was Saddle Wreckage, I think we would have been okay. But we'll find out. And now we don't have many basic lands left in our deck, so our top decks are going to be a bit better. Alright, so let's make a hasty Satyr. And get in there. Odds of a second Saddle Wreckage aren't too high. Might just be a Cryptic Command, tapping the team, and drawing a card. That's fine. No real reason to play out the Copperline Gorge here, I don't think. Alright, let's see if our opponent can find a way out of this. Ooh, Terminus off the top. That'll buy them some time. They can Terminus, and then Dawn of Hope can at least block the token from Xenagos, so they wouldn't be dead unless we can find more haste creatures off the top. And Baneslayer Angel, well, that'll do it. Don't think we can beat a Baneslayer. Ram Gang has Wither, but First Strike is going to kill the Ram Gang before that happens. So we can just play some stuff out, no point in attacking. And then if the Angel attacks Xenagos, hope we can kill them on the crackback, but that's pretty unlikely. So our opponent definitely had some timely sideboard cards here. Saddle Wreckage, Terminus, Baneslayer Angel. Let's see if they decide to draw with the Dawn of Hope. They don't. So they're still keeping up all their mana. Well, let's get in there. And see what they decide to do. Opponent takes it. Alright, so on the opponent's upkeep, I think we want to Lightning Bolt them. Or if they tap out here. Opponent goes for a Giant Sphinx's Revelation, and in response we'll bolt them. Wow. Did not think we were winning this game, but there you go. Opponent goes for the Revelation, and the Lightning Bolt, which we decided to keep an over Rampager or our double strike trick, got the job done. So super close game, very swingy. But Xenagos out of the sideboard did a ton of work. Got a timely Glass of the Guild back to speed things up, and then Bolt to finish them off. Just in time. Alright, sweet sweet, on to the next one. Alright, we're on the play. And what about this opening hand? Seems okay. Get to run out a turn 2 Burning Tree into Hagblade as a 3-2 haste, and then I've got a Ram Gang into maybe a Liege. We're just gonna fetch a tapped Stomping Ground end of turn. Opponent with a tapped Sacred Foundry. Let's turn out Burning Tree into Hagblade. And Burning Tree plus Hagblade play pretty well with each other, giving us a multicolor creature to give the Hagblade haste. Opponent with a Ramanap Ruins, so maybe a burn deck. Flameblade adapts. Alright. It's time for Ram Gang. Let's get a basic mountain. And get in there with everyone. Opponent takes it, goes to 9. If we can find an untapped land for the Liege, we'll have a ton of damage next turn. Alright, Manamorphose. Makes double red into Burning Inquiry. Alright, well, we might lose the Liege here. Got replaced with a Glass of the Guild Pact instead. And our opponent discarded the Fiery Temper to the random discard. Gets to pump the Flameblade 3 times as well. Next turn we can go Emissary plus Glass and Maniac. But Leech would have been nice. Takes out our Ram Gang with a Fiery Temper and 1 mana left for Lightning Bolt on a Hagblade. Alright, so they quickly reduced our board. And Arclight Phoenix also got discarded and gets returned here. Well, that was a pretty powerful turn for our opponent. They got a free 3-2 Haster, a free Lightning Bolt, and they got to mess with our hand as well. Opponent decides to attack instead of playing defense with the Phoenix. Just a landed draw. Let's go Burning Tree into Glass and Maniac here. And I guess there's an argument for keeping land in hand in case our opponent plays another Burning Inquiry. It's gonna be another Manamorphose. We don't quite know what the white is for in their deck. And it's gonna be a Rift Bolt for 3 mana, taking out our Maniac. Not sure why they killed the Maniac instead of the Burning Tree. And they're gonna play defense with a Phoenix, Dryad Militant to draw. Alright, I guess we're attacking with both here. They're not too likely to get back Arclight Phoenix next turn, since they only have one card in hand. Opponent is forced to block, trades for the Phoenix. And then we'll play a Militant. Still keeping Forest in hand, so if our opponent does Burning Inquirios again, we might draw something better than a basic Forest. It's gonna be a Goblin Lore. Pumps up the Adept once more. And our opponent did discard another Phoenix, so hopefully they don't get to cast 2 more spells here. Looting. Alright, if they find land plus 1 drop, they can get back double Phoenix, which would be pretty bad for us. In fact, we would be dead, but they don't. Now a triple Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard. Adapt attacks for 6. Can't block it because of Menace. We do have a lethal on the way back here. And our opponent scoops him up. Alright, sweet. Despite our opponent mulliganing, they had a very competitive hand that game. How do we want to sideboard? I'm guessing our opponent has Hollow One in their deck, so a Braid to kill it as well as their 1-drop seems reasonable. What else? We could make a case for Lava Coil, since it exiles Rekindling Phoenix as well as dealing with Hollow One. Renegades can also blow up a Hollow One, but maybe a little bit too narrow. And then of course we could consider the Graveyard Hate cards to deal with the Phoenix, although we don't want to be too reactive. Kitchen Finks could be okay for some life gain. So these are the cards we're mostly considering. I guess Huntmaster could be decent too, gaining a bit of life, providing multiple bodies to block the Menace creatures. What are we taking out? I think I still like the Lightning Bolt to take out her 1-drop. The Maniac could be kind of a drawback if her opponent plays an early Hollow One. Leech should be pretty good, since at 4 toughness it survives their 3 damage burn spells. Maybe we shave some Bloodbraid Elves to make room for Huntmaster. Kitchen Finks might be better than the Ram Gang, although I doubt it. Maybe we just shave 2 Maniacs to make room for the interaction. And I don't think I bring in the Graveyard Hate for Phoenix. They can probably beat us without bringing back Phoenix from the graveyard. And then these cards are going to look pretty bad, because Relic of Progenitus can just be too slow at times. If we're on the draw, they can get back a Phoenix on turn 2 if they have a Manamorphose. At least Relic we can cycle, whereas Gravedigger's Cage, if they don't have the Phoenix draw, doesn't really do much. Don't think we can keep this hand with 2 basic forests, sadly. Even though we can cast Militant, and with any 3rd land a Ram Gang, we really need red mana to cast the Sabraden Fury. Alright, this one I can get behind. We've got some early pressure with Maniac and Burning Tree, some interaction with Lava Coil and Bolt. Don't think we want to keep a Ram Gang when we don't have a 3rd land. Opponent does have the Adapt. I think I will bolt that, but we don't have to bolt it right now. We can wait until the opponent's turn, since that might affect our play. And then next turn we can go Burning Tree Glass, or Burning Tree Maniac, or Burning Tree Lava Coil. Got some options. Opponent plays a Lavamancer. Could just Lava Coil that if we want to. They played Lavamancer before maybe randomly discarding. Instead a Rift Bolt suspended. Yeah, I think I'll just Bolt Adapt here. Card is scary enough that I just want to prevent taking damage. And I don't want the opponent to use the Lavamancer, so I'll just go Burning Tree Lava Coil, I think. Even though we would prefer to keep Lava Coil to answer Hollow Ones or Arclight Phoenix. Rift Bolt can go after the Burning Tree. I suppose we could have decided not to play the Burning Tree, so they Rift Bolt our face instead, and then we just Lava Coil for 2 mana the Lavamancer. I guess it might have been better, since we knew the Rift Bolt was incoming, and we would prefer taking 3 to the face than losing our 2/2 creature that's gonna get pumped by Glass. Opponent does have looting after the Manamorphose, so if they can discard a Phoenix, they can get it back. And yep, there's Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard. Rift Bolt also suspended. And Phoenix comes back. Alright, take 3. Burning Tree is not a bad draw. Again, we could decide not to play our creatures to play around the Rift Bolt that's incoming, but since we can play both, I guess it's okay to get on the board here. And now we're just hoping to top deck more creatures off the top, basically. Opponent just has a Lightning Bolt as their last card. Rift Bolt takes out the Burning Tree, presumably. And then we're just top decking, whereas our opponent has a Phoenix in play. Although we do have a Glass of the Guild Pact in play, which is not irrelevant. So I guess we're slightly behind. Opponent also still has the looting in the graveyard that they can flash back to get a bit of card selection. So yeah, we're slightly behind, but it's not an unsurmountable disadvantage. And opponent does flashback looting. Gets double Arclight Phoenix in the graveyard, that's scary. Well, let's hope our opponent never manages to string together 3 spells. This bolt is probably just gonna have to answer the Phoenix. Let's bolt bird. Alright, let's top deck some goodies. Foothills. I guess there's no real point in playing it out, since we can always get a basic land, don't really need to get a tap Stomping Ground on turn. And if our opponent does cast the random discard spell, then we could maybe upgrade the Foothills into something better. Alright, if our opponent is stockpiling a bunch of spells, we could be in trouble. I guess we will play the Copperline Gorge tapped here. It's gonna be a hard cast Hollow One. Yep. Just a forest, so we're not drawing too well. Yeah, I guess we'll keep that in hand for now. Alright, so don't have a lot of time left. Hollow One is gonna start clocking us. And there's still the threat of Arclight Phoenix looming. Kitchen Finks is okay. Gains a bit of life, and it's a 4/3, so it can trade for Hollow One. Opponent's just hard casting Fiery Temper to get rid of it. Well, at least that means they have 1 fewer spell to get back Phoenix, so they're probably holding a land, is my guess. Otherwise, they would probably wait to cast a Fiery Temper. It's going to be a Rift Bolt. Alright, Hollow One can put us to 8. And hoping to top deck something big here. Just a forest. Yeah, I think we're still keeping that in hand. At least if we had a Raging Ravine, we could be racing and potentially beating the Hollow One in the race. But basic land, not so much. And another Glass of the Guild Pact's not gonna do it. Alright, let's go to game 3 here. So any adjustments? Do we want to reconsider Relic of Progenitus perhaps? Rampager is still pretty useful at helping us trample over a potential Hollow One, especially if they try and block our Maniac. So I kind of still like it over Bloodbraid, although that game showcased that we can trade a lot of resources and then the card advantage from Cascade is useful. Renegades could be okay at blowing up Hollow One again, but still pretty narrow, as they just have the 4 artifacts in their deck, whereas at least the Braid can also hit their creatures. I guess the Ram Gang lines up pretty awkwardly against their Fiery Tempers and Lightning Bolts if we don't have a Glass of the Guild Pact in play. So maybe we should just like cut the Ram Gang to make room for something more impactful. But there's also the curve consideration, of course, that if we take out Ram Gang, we're gonna have too many 4s and not enough 3s, and we might not curve out properly. I guess we'll swap a Ram Gang for Renegades, and maybe add back 1 Bloodbraid Elf, and then cut a Glass of the Guild Pact, since if our opponent is killing all our creatures, then Glass is not great. And we'll try something like this. Hand looks reasonable. We've got double Burning Tree into Hagblade. A Braid to deal with any creature or Hollow One. Alright, let's play the Ravine, say go. It's gonna be a tapped Sacred Foundry. We still haven't figured out what the white is for. Maybe it's for sideboard cards. Who knows. We're just gonna Burning Tree Emissary it up here. Into a Hagblade. So we've got a nice aggressive start. And then a 3rd land is pretty great too here. And this time if we flood out, we've got a Raging Ravine to get in there. So don't hate our chances this game. But you can never count out Arclight Phoenix decks. It's gonna be a Rift Bolt suspended. Lightning Bolt to draw. Alright, let's get in there. Opponent down to 10. Rift Bolt, probably going after the Hackblade. So if we were to bolt our opponent to 7 and then top deck a third land for Ramgang, if our opponent doesn't have any interaction, they would still die. Or at least be forced to chump block. Could also braid the Flameblade Adepts. Yeah, I think we'll just get rid of the Adepts. We could regret it if our opponent like plays a Hollow One next turn, but let's get in there with the Ramgang. And then Lightning Bolt can finish them off at any point. It's going to be a Goblin Lore, discarding Arclight Phoenix. But even if they get back Arclight Phoenix and play 2 Hollow Ones, the Lightning Bolt can get the job done, which is why I went with the Abrade on the Flameblade Adept instead of the Lightning Bolt. Manamorphose, so there's a high likelihood of Arclight Phoenix returning from the graveyard. And there's a Hollow One into a looting. So Phoenix will return, they have a Hollow One, but they're still dead on board. Unless they happen to looting into a second Phoenix, which they didn't. So just one Phoenix returning, which is not good enough here. Well, our opponent did put up a good fight despite their mulligans in the first and third game. But this time we had a nice start fueled by Burning Tree Emissary, and we got the job done. Awesome, so that's gonna do it for today's gameplay video. Wanna thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed. And as always, have a nice day. I also want to thank all my patrons for being part of the channel, and you can become a patron yourself today and decide the topic of future videos over at patreon.com/LegenVD.